41.8 points, 10.3 assists. That's what Jalen Brunson averaged over the last 4 games of the first round. In a series that will undoubtedly go down as a classic, he produced so much offense it's unfathomable to even think about, at times single-handedly willing the Knicks to a second-round appearance. When watching these games, it's pretty easy to see that Brunson's a ball-dominant player, but I'm not sure everyone quite grasps the absurdity of it all. In that series, he averaged 105 touches a game, and these aren't just short stints with the ball where he'll move it around, quickly get rid of it, and engage in free-flowing offense like you'll see with Jokic or Embiid. These are long durations where he's patiently breaking down his defender and getting to his spots from anywhere on the floor. As a result, his average time of possession with the ball was over 11 minutes per game. Just to put into perspective how crazy of a mark that is, MVP Westbrook was just over 9. MVP Harden just under 9. Guys like Luka and Trey have never eclipsed 9.5. Brunson has the ball a lot, and it feels like he never stops putting pressure on the defense. Nobody on Philly could stay in front of him, so he got into the paint over and over and over again, which is really interesting when you take into account physical tools. Think about any of the game's best slashers. Brunson doesn't have the explosiveness of a Ja Morant or Anthony Edwards. He doesn't have the length of a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Donovan Mitchell, and he certainly doesn't have the size or strength of a Luka Doncic. Yet in that first round series, he averaged 27 drives per game, which is the second most of any playoff player since tracking started back in 2014. In the case of Brunson, he's completely mastered the art of setting up his defender to create driving angles. You'll often see him pause, almost lulling his defender to sleep while looking in an opposite direction, only to randomly burst into a drive, and that's just jarring. Another thing you'll see him do quite a bit is start possessions moving towards the corner, where he can fake a dribble handoff and attack open space near the baseline. Primarily though, it's plays like this, starting on a drive left as he appears to be trying to get down the middle, only to quickly spin back to his right and find space for a floater. Misdirections are his go-to in these spots. He's not super lengthy, but his footwork is so sharp, which when paired with his ability to seek out contact, allows him to make a mockery of anyone who stands in front of him. It's the same thing whenever he's using a screen. I don't think there's a player in the NBA better at forcing his defender to make contact. Typically, it'll be this left-hand hesitation, and at first glance, it just seems like lazy defense from Tobias to let him get inside the arc for a jumper, but the problem is that when a more aggressive defender like Oubre reacts to that hezi, he throws it straight into a crossover to reject the screen, and now he's right back to attacking the middle of the floor. Here's another example. As soon as he crosses half, he hesitates, and it's such a simple move that leaves him with a runway to attack, to which he goes to that signature misdirection. As he's built up chemistry with Hartenstein, this has become impossibly tough to guard, because he knows how to read where Brunson's going and he'll flip the screen accordingly, so it almost feels as if he's guaranteed to find open space. These two things work together. It's a screen left, so Brunson hesitates left, then when he crosses right, Hartenstein flips it into a right-hand screen, and he's got a great look from 3. Even without a live dribble, the guy is constantly manipulating his defender. Instead of using a left-hand screen, he jabs into a drive right, with nobody in position to stop him from getting to an elbow jumper. And like I keep saying, Hartenstein will flip the screen accordingly, so your point of attack defender better be able to make himself skinny. In the event that the initial screen doesn't land, don't worry because they'll just run it over again from square one, and this time Oubre gets hit, so he's able to work his way to a mid-range jumper. And what ends up happening is that they'll just spam the same screen multiple times until they get the advantage they want. From there, it's all about how the rest of the defense reacts. Joel tends to play the pick and roll in a deep drop coverage, to which Brunson has access to off the dribble threes. Then as soon as Joel steps out a bit higher to close that space, he turns the corner with speed and attacks the big man on his way to a layup. It was the exact same thing when the Sixers tried to ice the screen. Brunson gets forced baseline where he's got an entire side of the floor to work with on a drive. A deep drop while the point of attack guy chases him off the line is the natural reaction to both protect the paint and take away the pull-up jumper, and the problem then becomes how you deal with his in-between game, because not only is he a threat to get to that patented floater, he'll use that threat by hesitating to pull the big before dropping it down low to his roll man. Of course, another thing he'll do is get that defender either on his backside or hip and patiently hunt for space into mid-range where his jumper is absolute butter. The way he uses his live dribble to find these openings is masterful. This time he snakes the screen and Joel doesn't want to switch, so he's left with an easy bucket. And on this one, it looks like he's doing the same, only to fake the snake and instead sidestep back out for a jumper over Batum. Oftentimes that means a third defender has to step into these actions to protect the middle of the floor, to which he'll continue to apply pressure before leaving it to one of his many shooters for a high quality three-pointer. In other words, he's sort of a drop killer when the shot is falling, and as a result the Sixers did try their fair share of aggressive coverages, but he's not the type to quickly react by getting it out of his hands. He's comfortable keeping his dribble and hunting for an opening, at times taking on the entire defense himself. It also doesn't help that the defense has to constantly be worrying about him potentially rejecting these screens, and even though Oubre does a good job of recovering to step in front of him, he can step back for one of his mid-range jumpers. This right here is incredibly important because while I spent most of this video talking about his ability to get into the defense and make plays from the paint, there are still times where the defense is able to keep him in front. This is where his game gets taken to another level, as his wide array of counters and the way he can score over the top of defenses have turned him into one of the game's most prolific volume scorers. His footwork is absolutely remarkable, meaning that anytime there isn't a path to the rim, he can create separation for himself seemingly out of thin air. He's also really good at using up fakes, so on an isolation like this where he threatens a step back jumper, he's able to turn it into a potential three-point play. When these things work together, I'm really not sure what a defender is supposed to do. The footwork to create separation, the up fake to get Maxey off his feet, then embracing the contact and scoring through it. And even if the defender doesn't bite, like here Tobias doesn't even react to his half spin, he still finds an angle to push it off the glass with some soft touch. Which brings me to my next point, difficult shot making. When going to work inside the arc, there isn't a single shot he's uncomfortable going to, making him an incredibly effective release valve. When the offense stalls or the shot clock's running low, just get the ball to the smallest guy on the floor and he's likely to make something happen. We've seen that down the stretch of these tight games. Even when spacing is compromised or it seems like the defense has done everything right, he never sees a shot he doesn't like. That has its benefits and its drawbacks. For one, it's the driving factor that allows him to create so much offense at volume. You can't take 30 shots a game if you're not occasionally, or sometimes even frequently relying on lower percentage looks. And that's also the drawback, because rarely ever will you see Brunson producing uber efficient scoring numbers like a Steph Curry, a Kevin Durant, or a Nikola Jokic. Rather, what he provides is a unique offensive floor. When they get into these defensive matchups that slow the game down and make the point total look like it's 1996, the baseline of his volume shot creation is able to push the offense just enough to grind out wins, much like we've seen in the past with a guy like 2001 Allen Iverson. Even more importantly than the efficiency though is how the defense reacts. Here you have two vicious crossovers to get the step on Maxey, and Lowry immediately makes an aggressive rotation to get in front of the ball, to which Brunson stops and pops along too. Philly understood that his shot creation was at times the team's only source of offense, and that created all sorts of opportunities for him to find his teammates for good shots. You won't see him making a bunch of super advanced passes, but he knows how to reach pressure points, force rotations, and he's really patient, so more times than not, he'll get the ball to the open guy. Here's a play that starts with one of his jab steps before driving in the opposite direction, and that collapses the defense for a kick out to the opposite corner, where Josh Hart's left with a warm-up three. To protect the paint from those drives, the Sixers often loaded up early with a second defender at the nail, and all he has to do is make a basic kick to Hart on the wing to create another high-quality look. Or they would shade him towards the baseline with rim protection sitting on the strong side block, and he drives right into the big man before dropping it off to Hartenstein at the rim. A few times the Sixers even decided to just outright trap him to get the ball out of his hands, to which he made all of the right reads to continue creating good looks. Because he's so patient with his decision making, has such great ball security when navigating through traffic, and doesn't look to make a ton of advanced passes, there are very few guys, if any, that make less mistakes. Remember how I started this video talking about his extreme ball dominance and how he has it in his hands for 11 minutes a game? In this series, he averaged 2.8 turnovers, 35.5 points, 9 assists, while turning the ball over less than 3 times. If that's not complete offensive control, I'm not sure what is. And his second round matchup happens to be a team that doesn't exactly have the best defense, with significantly less length than the Sixers, so I can't even imagine what he'll continue to do as the playoffs go on. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Brunson. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.